Welcome to our video on simple interest. Before I dive into what is simple interest, I want to do a little bit of review of some vocabulary words that I'm going to be using, just as we sort of talk through what on earth simple interest is. So the most sort of important word that I want to just sort of focus a minute on is this idea of the principal of an investment. So the principal is just sort of the beginning amount of money. It's sort of your lump sum deposit. It's sort of what you put into the account. So that's a really important idea that we're going to be using sort of throughout this video. The other important idea, obviously, is this notion of interest. So interest is a thing that we all need to pay a lot of attention to because it can be both great and awful. Because it's the money that we earn on a savings account or an investment. So there are certain accounts that I can put my money in and they're going to earn interest. So the money just earns money by sitting in the bank. It's wonderful. I love it. On the downside, interest is also sort of the fees you pay when you borrow money. So if I go buy a house and I don't pay for it all up front, I borrow money from the bank like most of us do. I'm taking out a loan, and to take out that loan, I pay an interest fee on the money I borrowed. That's the less pleasant side. I end up owing more than I borrowed. And then we're going to get into some of these other terms as we work through different videos in this lesson. But the one we're going to be focused on today is this notion of simple interest. So simple interest is interest that's only applied to the principal. So basically, I could earn money after year one, but that extra interest I earned is not going to impact how much interest I earn in year two. It will always be the same amount. And since it's always the same amount, this is actually a linear relationship. It's the only linear relationship we're sort of dealing with today. The rest of our relationships are exponential. And you might think it's exponential because there is a percentage rate involved, but it's not growing at a percentage amount. The same amount of interest is added each year. So it's an absolute growth relationship. Now, if we look at this formula, so A is a variable to represent final amount. Sometimes you may actually see this written out as FV, future value. It's how much money the account will have at the end of the investment. P is that valuable principal I talked about. T is what we're going to be using for time, and I do want to stress that is in years. Time will always typically be measured in years when we're doing in this finance problem. So if you have something that says, well, I invested it for an X number of months, you will need to convert that into years. And then the all-important interest rate, usually given in an annual amount. And that we want that R value to be a decimal. So it needs to be the decimal form of the percent, which we should be experts at doing right now. Now you might be going, that doesn't look like a linear function. There's an awful lot of variables. But if you distribute that P there, P times 1 would be P. And then I'd have plus PRT. And you might be going, well, that's an awful lot of variables there still. But notice if I and I'm going to switch colors so we can sort of highlight this. This right here would be like my initial value. And then the PRT, that ends up being the interest that's added every year. I'm going to just make a note, interest. But typically, we're going to know the principal, we're going to know the rate, and what we're sort of plugging in for is T, our time. So that T becomes like our independent variable, and then that F, the A or the FV is our sort of output value. But let's look at an example, and maybe that will help you sort of see how this sort of relationship ends up being a linear function. All right, so we have Trevor. He deposits $6,000 into a CD account. That's a certificate of deposit, and it pays 0.85% simple interest annually. Yes, that is 0.85%. One thing you will find about investments, as the more secure they are, the lower the interest rate typically will be. So how much interest did he earn in 1 year? Well, that's where this principal times the rate times the time is going to actually help us find our interest. So in this case, our principal is that $6,000. So I'm just going to sort of label what things are. And then we're given that 0.85% interest rate. So to find R, I need to turn that into a decimal. So if I divided that by 100, it would actually be 0.085. And then we're looking 1 year later. So we can find our interest, 6,000 times 0.0085 times 1, and we would have made over the course of the year $51. And you might be going, oh, that's, not as much as I was hoping. But, you didn't do anything, and you're $51 richer. It's sort of nice to have, so it's money in the account. So every year, our account is growing that 0.0085%. But it's not, I'm not going to now add this to the principal and then grow and apply that percent to the new value. Instead, the following year, so if I want to know how much, it's the end of the 6th year, he has $6,306. What you're going to find happens is, okay, I want to know how much interest he earned over each of those years. Well, if you have a total of $6,306 and you started with $6,000, that means this account over those 6 years earned $306. So this is the amount earned over 6 years. But 306 divided by 6, and you end up back at $51. So over those 6 years, every year, $51 were added to the account. So this is the interest earned per year. So you can almost think of interest as your absolute growth. So this is your absolute growth per year. Which means if I then want to figure out how much the account has after 10 years, I really just need to take that 51, my interest, times it by 10, and then add it to my principal, just like I would a linear function. And so I end up with $6,510 at the end of 10 years. I'm $510 richer. I will take it. So simple interest is this notion of that every year you're going to be earning that same amount. And typically with these types of problems, it's helpful to figure out what that yearly interest payment is up front and then sort of use it to solve problems with.